What are the main lanes that people need to be leveraging AI for if they're not?
AI can go in and do a whole bunch of projection modeling and say, if it was at this efficiency target and I was able to invest this much ad spend, what would I get out? And there's minimal changes needed to have a huge impact on performance.
There are certain lanes that machines are just going to outperform human capacity every single step of the way.
This is where you're going to maximize your profitability. It's important that you start to utilize it so that you don't fall behind the curve.
Can machines run ads better than you on Amazon, on Walmart, in anything in e-commerce? That's what this episode is exploring. Exactly how artificial intelligence or the machine can do things better than we can. And on the flip side of that, what we as people can do better than AI. Obviously, AI has been a conversation, a hot topic for a long time now. And people have been talking about it specifically around the context of advertising specifically. This episode explores what you should be doing to leverage AI, what people can't do better than machine. And on the flip side of that, again, what we should be doing, what we should be taking control of that AI can't quite do yet. Laura Pattison joins me in this episode, and she is an expert in Amazon advertising, e-commerce advertising, and has been using AI to run ads for a long time now. She's very qualified to touch on this. She's at the forefront of advertising and leveraging AI to do advertising as well. I can't think of a better guest to do that. And a little fun fact. So this episode was actually one of the first episodes that I thought of around the concept of this show. Again, the show is designed to explore that intersection of humanity and machine, and it's designed to give you the most up-to-date conversations around how to leverage technology to win and to excel in e-commerce today. And so I really like this conversation. It really helps paint a picture for exactly where we're at where the industry is at when it comes to AI right now. And also, probably the most important part is where we will be over the next couple of years, because AI is progressing very fast. Things are changing very fast. And it's honestly, as an advertiser, it's really hard to know in the context of what everyone else is doing, where you should be and how you should be using this technology. So all that being said, there's a lot of value here. I'd encourage you to listen to everything all the way through. And if you need to, follow us on social, because we put out a lot of the main bits and pieces of all the highlights on our Instagram, on our TikTok, etc. So check us out there. All that being said, let's get started on how and why machines can run ads better than we can. Let's get started. Okay, Laura, we're coming at people who are listening to this show kind of hard hitting with this topic. The title of this episode is Machines Can Run Ads Better Than You. Now, if I was a listener and I heard that, I would kind of get a little defensive. I'd be like, hold on, I'm an expert at this stuff. Like, you're saying, who are you to say that they can run ads better than me? But that's what we're exploring. And we're exploring in this episode why machines can run ads better than people, right? Before we get into that, though, let's just give people some context for who you are and why you deserve to be speaking on this episode, because you are our ad expert. So, Laura, first, intro yourself. What do you do at Teikametrics?
Yeah, so I am the Senior Director of Strategy and Insights. I focus on data and analytics to drive strategy for our customers on and across marketplaces. So within one siloed marketplace, and then helping to make decisions across them as well for the health of the brands.
Laura is our expert of experts. She's been with the company. You've been with the company for quite a while, and you manage some of the ads, a lot of ads for some of the top brands out there. And so you know what you're talking about. And you've had this perfect blend of leveraging technology to manage those ads for those big brands. And that's what we're exploring. We're exploring the whole point of this podcast is to explore that combination of people and machine. And this episode takes a really deep dive into those levers specifically. So, one idea for the podcast I had was actually to call it the Singularity. And for people who aren't aware, the Singularity is this hypothetical point in the future, perhaps it's already happened, where AI overtakes humankind. Have you heard of the Singularity? Do you know what that?
Yeah,
You've heard of that concept? Okay.
vaguely. I don't think I've done deep dives into it, but yes.
Think the Matrix. It's the Matrix. Singularity. The singularity is the point in time where AI takes over, surpasses human intelligence. Right. So who knows when that is? It's hypothetical. Who knows when it'll happen? Maybe it's inevitable. But have we, in the context of advertising and ad performance, have we reached a point where AI? Have we reached an AI singularity with e-commerce advertising?
As a whole, no, I don't think that we have. I don't know that we've I don't wanna say come close. I think there's still, quite a bit of ground that needs to be covered to get to that point. I think that when you talk about ads and ad performance overall, there's a lot of different elements within that, right? There's campaign creation and how you want to create your campaigns and how you source your keywords and do that research. How you consider price points and promotions and the best strategy applied for that, how you bid. One of my favorite topics. So we'll deep dive into that one a little bit more. Spoiler alert, I'm sure, as it relates to AI and where AI can outperform humans. And so, because there are so many different aspects, there's not singularity overall. I think we are approaching it in certain um, areas, specific areas of ad performance, but as a whole, thankfully for my sake and a large part of the team here, strategy and the humans are still, very important to overall ad success.
Yep. So there are certain lanes perhaps where AI, technology, machines can outperform humans, but there's still this necessary combination of both of them. So put people at ease for this point where humans will be irrelevant, at least for the next year at least. We're good, maybe further than that. But
Okay, yeah.
why in some circumstances can AI outperform humans? Like what specific areas of ad management are better with machines compared to humans?
Yeah, so it's volume and granularity. This balance of how much can you handle and at what level of detail can you handle it, and that's something that a machine can do at scale. It can synthesize large amounts of data, make decisions off of multiple signals from that data. Where that's really hard to do. It's really difficult for humans to do, and it's difficult for humans to do with accuracy, right? The As we scale, we're often making mistakes in certain areas and using calculators to complete the work for us. So, there you have it. We're leaning on machines once again, and by calculators, I mean Excel. But all of that, it's really the volume of data and the number of data signals that we want to incorporate, and then the level of granularity we want to incorporate them. So something like bidding at the keyword level versus the campaign level accelerates scale very, very quickly across an account of what you're trying to manage.
Yep. So there's this very numbers based aspect. And I think this is what people are familiar with. ChatGPT popularized the use of AI for a lot of daily tasks. And an aspect of scale, management at scale, and anything having to do with numbers or compiling text at scale. People are used to identifying all those things, using AI to do that. Um, but let's summarize with ad management specifically. What aspects of management can AI still not yet outperform people?
Yeah, this um it really has to do with external influences and factors. So, one example was seasonal products and targets. And so it's still struggling to understand, not only do I need to look at recent performance, but I actually need to go back and look at last year's performance because this target picked up on Black Friday. And so it's understanding what inputs are needed to make the best decisions to kind of replicate performance. So that's where a human needs to step in and say, well, this is a holiday term. This is Christmas presents for dad. And I need to go in and artificially boost the bids here because I know the performance isn't going to look the same as it did in October when we probably weren't shopping for Christmas presents for dad. And so I know based on this external factor, I need to go in and implement a one off ad hoc change to tell the tool, to tell the machine, to tell the bidder, hey, we're entering the season, we need to push. There's also so it's a lot to do with how many factors can influence performance and are they tied together? And if we tied every signal and the machine knew how to synthesize every signal, it could absolutely outperform humans, but we don't connect it. And this could be as simple as weather. You wouldn't think necessarily that you need to connect weather to the machine to make decisions based on ads. Well, if you're selling a dehumidifier, my guess is in an area where there was just flooding is going to you're going to accelerate sales there, but until you have those signals and combine those signals with the knowledge of, hey, where there's heavy rainfall or heavy humidity in the weather, you might be selling more dehumidifiers than you were last week.
Mm. Is it all does it all come down to data identifiers? You know what I'm saying? Like, can everything be tied back to data in the ad management space? Can every action, every result be tied back to data? Yeah, I mean, every action, every result is data. I to a degree, maybe not. Maybe that's a
As
separate
someone who
episode.
loves
Everything's
data, I
data.
want to say yes. I want to say yes. And again, it depends on which of those lanes that we're in. So we talked about those lanes earlier. And so a lot of what I talk about is really based around bidding because that is where technology really first stepped in to support digital advertising was around bidders. Like that was a very famous need or a very initial need in this world is to um,
Side note, if you're watching the video right now, Apple's latest update gives you certain actions that you can do with if you put your fingers up in a certain way. And for me, it always comes up at the worst times, and that just happened. So sorry.
we
Continue.
just had
Continue.
some fireworks go off. And so if you're making a database decision, especially where a number is an outcome, like a bid, yeah, the data is going to be so important there. But there's still those external factors. Oftentimes you can turn them into data, like the weather, like the seasonality, um, your competitor products, things like that. But even, being featured on a morning talk show, this happened to a brand that I worked with some years ago, and they released the Death Star waffle maker. I remember this distinctly. Pretty cool. Go check it out. And it was featured on a talk show. And before I walked into the office that day, they were sold out just because it took off. And so that's where there's humans can almost react faster knowing that information and tying that together and the impact and how short-lived that impact could be. So then the tool may go and say, "Oh, look how much we're selling," and try to accelerate bids. Well, we've sold out of inventory. We don't expect that spike the next time inventory is restocked. And so there's still this level of nuance that needs to be considered in the building of strategy or in the reaction to external influences.
Hmm. You One big aspect that I was really looking forward to having you on is the fact that you've had your hands in, again, so many different brands, advertising, different strategies, and also the technology of Teikametrics, which prioritizes bidding strategy, bids at scale. And there's a whole lot more there, but bidding is a really big focus, as it should be for advertisers that leverage technology like this. Can you give me a very specific example for how you recently leveraged AI to drastically improve a business's ad performance that could not have been done by human capacity?
Man, you just want one?
I'll take as many as you got.
Yeah, so I'll give a fairly specific example at the end, but there's a couple places that this happens. And so think about a keyword data for a keyword being in two or three different states. One, liquid solid gas. I'm just kidding. The first is a data state where you have statistical significance. You have enough clicks, you have enough data to make a decision on what that bid should be because you have enough confidence that the value of the click is repeatable. You can predict that the value of the click that you have seen, so the sales per click that you've gotten on average, is something that you can depend on being pretty consistent. And so the more data that you have, you can rely on that value per click and therefore know what you want to pay for a click with reliability. That's
With
where a human
reliability, again, reliability meaning consistent data over time, historical data that has led you to a conclusion. Okay.
Yes. And so, not to get too into the weeds of the bidding formula, most people are pretty comfortable with it at this point. So hopefully I'm not introducing anything too new and derailing the conversation. But, when you're looking at a value of a click or average sales per click, you're looking at conversion rate and AOV. And we can do the mathematical proof if you want. I think it's fun. Not everybody does, but you can do the mathematical proof and it will result in sales per click. And so, if you know with reliability, with some consistency, that that is the average conversion rate, it's not we got one conversion and now that's our conversion rate and it's going to change tomorrow when we get some more clicks and not another conversion. When you have the statistical significance behind the data, anybody really can calculate what the bid should be. Again, it needs to be done at scale. And so you're doing big Excel formulas, but that's where machines don't eclipse humans by too much because we know that basic formula. Now, that's one state of the keyword. The other two are when they don't have statistical significance. One is when it's brand new and we know nothing about it. We have no idea where to even start the bid. And one is where we're in that kind of unreliable state where we have some information, but maybe we need to aggregate it with other like terms from the same category. In order to make an intelligent bid. And that is where machines just absolutely rule because they can take all of those and aggregate all of those signals and all of that similar data and make a better projection of what that bid should be based on your
Yep.
goals.
And maybe people could aggregate that data themselves, and maybe they could guess. But you're do you want to play with guesses? Do you want to rely on your own? I mean, I'm thinking about like if the police ask people questions about like a crime that happened, it's common knowledge. We're all of a sudden this is turning into a crime podcast. We
It'll take off that way.
It's common knowledge that you can't really trust the human brain, right? Human memory specifically in that one example, but I myself wouldn't want to rely on my own guesswork. Maybe I'm confident in my ability to guess at scale, but also I'm not a machine and I can't aggregate data like that. And I can't make educated guesses, especially that quickly, and keep track of all that data with a split second. So that's a
And that's where we talk about the volume of the data and the granularity. Like, how do you want to do this for every single keyword that doesn't have I like data and I don't. I don't want to do that. But it's all these data points, right? It's the category. What is the subcategory? What is the ratings and reviews? Like if it's low ratings and reviews, can I compare it to one of my top selling products that is a 4.5 star with 5,000 reviews? So there's all of these different signals that even if, even if I wanted to do it for one single keyword, there's a lot to kind of figure out how much to weight category versus subcategory and all of these different elements. And so that's where it's just like it doesn't make sense for the human to do in terms of efficiency, but it's not even like accuracy wise. The machine is going to learn and continue to learn, right? A human, we're at capacity. We think we know what's best, but machines continuing to improve upon the approach of how to determine that.
And that's what I think a common comeback that I think some people have in the conversation of artificial intelligence in relation to topics like this for ad management is, well, you could just teach a team. You could just get 10 people and teach them how to do this job and like have people that operate at the same capacity. But yeah, you're shaking your head. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, well,
Like,
that's the question.
sure, you
Why
could.
you could maybe, and maybe they could potentially do the job, but they're not. It's just not the same. It's just not the same at doing as computational power of understanding data at scale and executing almost instantly. So okay, I feel like we're kind of painting this more clear picture of like over time why AI is powerful, what lanes. I kind of want to go back to like identifying those lanes that are more AI specific in today's world. But well, let's do that before we paint a picture of the future. So you talked about this towards the beginning, but like paint a picture for me again of those lanes. What lanes today? You're in the middle of all this. You're in the
Oh
mix.
yeah, I'm playing in traffic.
You're in it. right now, more than anyone I know, at least. And I know a lot of people. Now and so you're in this. What are the main lanes that people need to be leveraging AI for if they're not?
So we talked about bidding. That one, you and I think at a conference over the last year, probably 6 or 9 months ago now, I was like, run. If you're not using for bidding, get there now. So if you still haven't done that, come visit us. Um, so bidding is a big one. And even support in determining what your efficiency target should be to then inform the bidder. And so that is like our smart ACOS tool is able to, based on a couple different factors, if you say, I want to do this profitably, I want this campaign to focus on profitability. These are my cogs. So you can understand where your break even point is. And I want to maximize profitability. The tool can actually AI can go in and do a whole bunch of projection modeling and say, if it was at this efficiency target and I was able to invest this much ad spend, what would I get out? And find the optimal point, again, for each ad group to determine based on your break even and your cogs, what should your efficiency goal be? And so it's able to do this at scale. And as we've talked about before, um, there's minimal changes needed to have a huge impact on performance. We've shifted ACOS targets by 1 to 3 percentage points, um, but done it across thousands of campaigns because, again, the machine can do that and resulted in a 24% increase in profitability. So the margin of error for humans is we can't we can't compete with that margin of error.
So was it you that identified those changes in targets? So you mentioned a 1 to 3% change in ACOS target. Was it ACOS target?
Yes.
Okay. Was it you that identified those that like I, Laura, am saying we need to change this, or was it the machine?
The machine. So we went into
Holy
the
smokes.
machine and said, "Here's our cost of goods sold data. I want to make this campaign profitable." And we have growth, our launch, growth, profit, and liquidate. So depending on the cycle, the stage of that product, you can identify what your goals are. So maybe you want to liquidate, get everything out of the warehouse before Q4 fees hit. And so you want to liquidate this. And so it'll focus on sell through rather than profitability. But you just give it your cogs and you give it your goal, and it will say this based on all of this modeling at the ACOS level or at the ad group level. This is where you're going to maximize your profitability. And again, that is a volume, that is a level of granularity, and that is a margin of error that I can't compete with. Um,
How's it doing that?
Uh, yeah, a lot of data. This is one of those things like, could I do it once? 100%. Could I go in and look at the diminishing returns and the natural log curve and say, I know that with every dollar I spend, I don't necessarily get the same in return. And so there's a line of diminishing returns. And so you can go in and model this based on, again, historical data, but doing it at scale and doing it with consideration of, okay, now what if my ACOS was 20% instead of 19%? Doing that 15 times for one ad group, again, there's my afternoon. And the tool is doing this across the entire account in a matter of minutes.
So, okay, there's this I want to get to the other lanes that exist for leveraging AI, but in this one specific lane, we're talking about this really cool concept of like you pick what you want to happen or how you want these ads to operate. I'm trying to be profitable. I'm trying to launch a product. I'm trying to liquidate. What was the fourth? What's the fourth one?
Launch, growth, profit, liquidate. I don't know which one you
Launch,
missed.
growth,
Sorry.
profit, liquidate. So basically, you're telling the machine, I want this to happen because I am the human and I know I want this to happen. And the machine says, okay, here's what you need to do all that at scale at a point that the human could not. But those four identifiers, is there a point in the future where the machine does that on its own? because like the you go up a level, and at that point in time, it's just like what's best for what's best for the business, right? Um, like in the sense that like are those options given to people just to help them feel like in
Feel
control?
useful.
You know, like because that's
um,
one honest thing that that people are gonna struggle with, and this is not just with e-commerce. This is just with everything. Is like okay, I want to still feel like I'm in control, and that's partly why people have trouble adopting AI and tech like this is because they feel a little out of control. Are these levers given to people to feel like you're kind of smiling?
yeah,
That's one question, and the second question is there a future where AI can actually, like, pull these levers for you as a person?
it- I love science, and I think that technology is accelerating at such a rate that I can't even comprehend it in my lifetime, just how much it's evolved. And so I'm really resistant to being like, well, you need to be able to look at the health of the overall business of the brand outside of Amazon and consider where they are and what their goals are. And, are they trying to sell their business off? And so they're trying to accelerate top line sales, or are they, they just got a new board member. And so now they're trying to make everything super profitable. Like, again, those are the nuances that I want to say humans are always going to be needed for this.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
technology has never stopped surprising me. So I don't want to make that prediction. I don't want to bet against the machines. So, you know, right now it doesn't quite seem feasible to me because of the number of indicators that could possibly be and influence a business's decision of certain goals. But again, I hate to be that naive person to think that, AI wasn't writing us, book reports 2 years ago. And now here we are.
I mean, I see a good again, we're this podcast is about the fusion of both of them, right? And the necessary fusion of human machine. Just like the theme of this episode is there are certain lanes that machines just you can't argue against it. They are just gonna outperform human capacity every single step of the way. I could see a future where you give your goals and take certain actions, and the machine says the okay. Well, if you want that, these actions are gonna like go against what you want. I could see a machine like
Sure.
that being an identifier, right? Of like human says, I want this to happen. Pull do these things. Machine says, okay, well, actually, if you do this, then it's not
Yeah.
gonna do this.
Right.
Like,
I
oh,
think. Oh, I think we're there with that.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, the singularity's here. Then I'm just kidding. It's not. No, no.
Well, I'm gonna go home then. I don't think I have a job anymore. The tech will just do it.
So, okay, let's go back to the lanes thing here. So
Yeah.
we talked about bids, and we talked about this well setting like a cost targets, efficiency targets, right? What other lanes are there that are AI dominant?
Sure. So, again, mostly focusing on the ads world. I'll rattle off a couple that are, tangential, very important on the marketplace, but a little less ads focused. So, campaign creation and keyword identification, like keyword research. That's something that we used to, go into multiple different tools and search around the internet and see what other titles were and figure out how people were searching for this product. And this is something that can be done at scale, and the tool is able to source and pull from chat gpt or whatever open ai and understand, read what's on a product detail page, and pull forward relevant information, all sorts of different ways to source these terms. And then the campaign creation generally of making sure that you have a proper parent, um, like 6-to-1 structure: your auto, your brand, your competitor, your generic, your brand defense ASIN, and your competitor ASIN campaigns. And again, if it's already sourcing all of the content that needs to be put in these shells, might as well put it in these shells. So AI is, creating our campaigns for us in a large way. Again, there's moments we need to step in and help correct in some ways. It depends on thresholds of data and things like that, but those are two other really significant ways where we see AI play in. And then just in general, we're starting to see inventory, like adjustments to your stock is starting to deplete. Do you want to continue to invest in advertising if you're going to sell through this anyway? Like, why pay money to do that? So being able to be reactionary based on that, price point. Hey, you dropped your price, or your competitor dropped their price. You're not as competitive anymore. That's going to impact conversion rate. So I know I need to make adjustments to, bidding. But again, it's different kinds of signals. Suggestions of price points, like what is your understanding your cogs and price elasticity, promotions that you're running, and how like a lightning deal versus a deal of the day may impact your goals in comparison. And so we're starting to see AI emerge in a big way. And then going back to the creative version of AI, I like to focus on the data stuff. But Amazon has been releasing over the course of this year the custom images to go with your sponsored brand campaigns. They're creating that for you right in Amazon ads now, um, helping to write some of the creative content as well for detail pages. And so it's not just this management of large data points at scale and at a granular level. We're seeing it kind of eke into the creative side as well.
There are a lot of lanes.
There's a
That's the
lot of
take
lanes.
that's the
Yeah.
takeaway. There are a lot of lanes that technology, and this is all now. I think that's what I want people to understand is that, again, the title of this episode is "Machines Can Run Ads Better Than You." You just listed off a ton of really essential pieces to successful advertising. We're talking mostly about Amazon, other e-commerce marketplaces, but this is a conversation about e-commerce advertising. But all those things you just listed off are essential, and all of those are managed better with machines. I want to talk about the future, and I'm so curious from your perspective, Laura's perspective, what inevitable up and coming AI thing is going to blow you away when it comes to advertising and unlocked capacity for you as an advertiser. What's coming up? And it doesn't have to be this next year, but like what point in time you're like, I know this is going to happen, and I know it's going to blow me away. What do you think that is? For a lot of people, ChatGPT, like honestly, people don't need a lot, right? ChatGPT's ability for you to go in and just say, write me a social media post based on this blog. And it's like a 3-page blog and it summarizes it, uses emojis. You can tell it to use all shark emojis. I don't know if you know this. You can go to ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT to write a story about squirrels that are pirates.
Well, I'd
I
like to
did
read
this
this
myself.
story. This feels like a very specific instance, Cam.
I did that. Believe it or not, I did this myself. And boy, was it a good story. And there were squirrels that spoke like pirates.
I love this.
That's all
We
you
had
need.
a
That's like,
"'Twas the Night Before Christmas" written about our CEO.
oh, see, okay, and make him a pirate.
We didn't make him a pirate, but
And
now we can go back and
now
revise
we
that.
can do that. We'll make him a
Right.
squirrel pirate.
Scroll.
Peop People are blown away, and that's crazy. That's, like, insane. That's a very tangible thing. Like, ChatGPT is one of the first, has been one of the first really tangible things that has gotten mass attention because you can go in, type into it whatever you want kind of, and it turns it out, right? All of this is it's very, like, foundational, and it's essential, and it's also mind-blowing because it's all happening now for advertisers. What is that like? What is that point for you that's gonna blow your mind?
For me, it is the creative. Again, as somebody who I know this is an unpopular opinion, I would rather spend the day with numbers than with letters, personally. So, on the data side, I like to be there, and so the creative side is honestly what blows my mind. That is so much harder, in my opinion, or in my mind, to wrap my head around the fact that technology is now doing this and doing this in very natural language and incorporating, what does a pirate sound like? And how would I combine a squirrel and a pirate and make that make sense in any kind of story? And so the creative pieces, for me, one of the most significant barriers that is being removed, right? That is something that's very difficult for a lot of, especially smaller brands, but brands um, to get together and to provide for us to use in their advertising. And so I think that is going to unlock a lot. I think we've still got a ways to go. I think um there's still some interesting things that AI is doing in terms of imagery where you're just like, okay, I don't know how those two things fit together, but sure. And so we'll see that continue to improve. And I'm really excited for it to get good.
So,
Uh,
and just to clarify, when you say creative, you're talking about image creation, video generation, audio, like that aspect of advertising for a brand.
and written. So, like, your bullet points or your A plus content, all of that is coming with some basic inputs into the tool. So really anything that doesn't have to do with numbers is what I consider creative. But yeah, that is audio, video, imagery.
It really feels like the Pandora's box has been opened, and that's has a negative connotation to say Pandora's box, but that truly like the AI this year, one of the things in 2023 that really unleashed everything was AI. AI has become, unfortunately, one unfortunate aspect of this is that AI has become a buzzword, and so that almost like neutralizes people to actually realize what's going on, and that's part of the point of this podcast, is to show people, at least in the world of e-commerce and advertising, what's happening here. But um, all that to say, there are a lot of really big things here. Um, Laura, if you're talking to people as an advertiser about this is the end, tie the bow on this conversation. Um, what do people need? And you're talking to a bunch of different advertisers at all levels here, but what do people need to do to start leveraging this AI based technology now? What should they consider starting? If they're not, what do you think people need to be start doing first with the AI capacity that's available now? And what would your last words to people be?
So those are definitely two separate. This feels a little bit harsh when you say the last words. I think the biggest thing when you're deciding how to leverage AI or where to start, identify where your weaknesses are or where your weaknesses are as a brand or as a brand manager, as well as where are the greatest opportunities for your brand. And so, we have many brands come to us and they're like, I don't know what my A cost target should be. And it's like, okay, well, we look at your COGS and we look at the price of the product and we start to back into this information and have this conversation. If you're not working with a human in the loop, you have the opportunity to loop in a machine. And again, it could, maybe you've got that nailed. You know exactly what your efficiency target should be, but you can't launch sponsor brand video campaigns because you don't have the creative. And so it's identify that weakness because there is some type of support from technology that can help alleviate that or help kind of break into removing that blocker. And so, overall, I think, as I was smiling and I want to sit here and say humans are still so important and part of that's job security and part of that's, I still firmly believe that at this point. Um, Part of it is getting used to testing, leveraging, reviewing, what this tech is producing for us, but continuing to lean in on it and get comfortable with it because it is here to stay. And it's important that we start to utilize it in our day-to-day strategies and become comfortable with it so that we don't fall behind the curve.
Yep. Well, the good news is that people can follow you to keep updated on all things AI. And this is a very niche of a niche of a niche conversation with AI and e-commerce and advertising. But that's how you're going to win in e-commerce today, is staying on top of this technology and these conversations. So Laura is on social media, and you should follow her because she puts out some really good stuff. And there will be more conversations about this in the future. We're going to have a data conversation not too far from now. Um, but this is a good conversation. Machines can indeed run ads better than people in some cases, in some lanes, but they cannot run your business better than you, and they cannot run your business for you. And humans are still necessary. So
That's
even
my
if a
story.
machine
I'm sticking to that.
that's yes, even if a machine can run an ad better than you, can run an ad better than me, it cannot run your business for you, and it cannot run your business better than you. So humans are still necessary, a necessary part of the machine. So Laura, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and I'm looking forward to more in the future.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Human in the Loop. I really enjoyed this conversation with Laura. Honestly, we explored the human side of this episode a whole lot more than I expected to, which is good. there's a whole lot. It's good to know that there's a whole lot that humanity that we can do that machines can't yet do. Who knows how long it'll take for that to change, but for now, the human element of this e-commerce strategy still has a ways to go, which is really good to know. All that being said, I mentioned this in the beginning of the episode, but follow us on social to keep up to date with the latest in all of these episodes. You can find that in the show notes, and I'm looking forward to the next episode of Human in the Loop. Until then, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.